Thank you for staying for story time, kids. I appreciate it.
Okay, and that's it. And
So,
the amount, should we put the quantity? If we go over.
I love the stories. I love the stories. And it all comes down to stories with people. And you learn the coolest things. And I've learned the coolest things about history with this too, because someone brings up a topic or a song or mom did this, or like you kind of research that era or what that means, and it's been so cool. And one lady, she had a whole bunch of sisters. They were all girls, and they grew up in an old Polish neighborhood in Milwaukee. And you have to be very thrifty, and you pass down the clothes from one girl to the next. You know, you couldn't get rid of anything passed down. Once all the girls were done with them, they give them to the neighbor kid. Well, the neighbor kid was a little boy. He got all the girl hand-me-downs. Well, that little boy grew up to be Liberace. Oh! I mean, like, we're all connected. It's so crazy.
That's interesting.
It's so crazy. But I love the stories. So just thank you for indulging me and learning a little bit about Frank. So like I said before, we did that song in color, talked about, you should sing it in color with the pictures and stuff for prayer, this memorial, and then some military honors. And I'll still kind of read faster than I would normally. But thank you guys, like you're so sweet. You have to learn.
Yes.
Each of you gathered here today had the distinct honor of seeing pieces of Frank's life in color. His adoring nurses saw a handful of days in color, but to meet Frank is to become his family. There's no amount of time too small that can lead you to say that you knew and adored Frank. His 6 great-grandchildren can count on their fingers the precious years, and his 2 children and 3 grandchildren can lovingly count the many decades. His beloved wife, Bev, saw over 77 of Frank's 94 years in color. Whether it was a week or the better part of a century, Frank impacted your life in color and with deep meaning. And now there is deep hurt that he is gone. But there is also such palpable gratitude that you can't help but smile and be grateful that you were a piece of Frank's colorful life. Francis Frank McDaniel was born in 1924 in Chicago, Illinois, to hardworking Irish immigrant parents, Callahan, a carpenter, and Anna, a seamstress. Little Francis was the only child out of 5 to survive childhood. The early 1900s were plagued with infectious diseases, and his siblings succumbed to pneumonia, flu, and tuberculosis. Frank learned early to cherish life and to make each day count. As he worked to fill the holes left by such substantial loss, everyone became his family. If you pumped his gas 60 years ago, your family. Being here today, in whatever capacity, your family. Growing up during the Great Depression sculpted and defined the best qualities of Frank. He had a realistic but positive approach to everything, in that he could always make do with what he had. Nothing was wasted, and everything could be useful and have a purpose. He worked at the corner grocery store in the Mount Greenwood neighborhood of Chicago as a young teen and learned carpentry skills from his father. Many years ago, he attended the funeral of that grocery store owner. The owner's wife, who had helped run the store for decades, remembered Frank and sincerely said he was the best employee they ever had. That's Frank. During the fall of Frank's senior year of high school, Beverly Nelson mysteriously appeared in his homeroom class one day. As Frank would say, as if she walked straight out of my wildest dreams. And Frank found the most important piece of his life. In 1942, 18-year-old Frank went to war. For 3 years, he proudly served in the U.S. Army, became a staff sergeant, saw action in France and Belgium, and was awarded a Purple Heart. You've probably heard the stories of Frank's military brothers and sisters. He spoke of them all with such pride and high regard, so grateful to have known them. Not all of his military siblings made it back home, and Frank would say part of me is still there with them. Pieces of me didn't come home. But come home he did after the war to the Bev that he adored, and they wed the summer of 1946 on Navy Pier in Chicago. They quickly had 2 children, Jeffrey and Todd, and their hearts were full as they nestled into their comfort zone in Mount Greenwood. Bev was a homemaker during the early child rearing years, and Frank couldn't have been prouder when Bev went back to school to become a teacher. He beamed and told everyone about his hardworking wife. Frank took numerous carpentry jobs and was an integral part of building the Windy City. Mindful to not be wasteful, Frank wouldn't throw out one nut or bolt or nail. He'd keep any and all random odds and ends because you just never know when you're gonna need exactly this, he'd say intently, shaking the item. And his wife and kids and grandkids and friends would roll their eyes, but they all learned in time that when in a bind, Frank was going to have just the piece you needed. And his random odds and ends have saved many of you on more than one occasion. So, thank you, Frank. Frank masterfully taught his sons the carpentry trade and was equally proud of their military service as well as the careers they each built in the construction industry. Frank was passionately involved with the VFW. He participated in the Memorial Day services at local cemeteries and was a part of the Honor Guard. In 2013, his sons surprised him with a trip to DC on the Honor Flight. If you met Frank for more than 5 seconds in the past 5 years, you heard how much that Honor Flight meant to him and how his little boys, now in their 60s, made it all happen. Frank and Beverly together built a community. Through resourcefulness, determination, and hard work, they pieced together the life that brought them fulfillment. They invented the staycation, as they were content to not go far, but they were always on the go. Frank didn't like to leave the city for too long because to him, it just wasn't suitable to ever miss a birthday or graduation or any life milestone of the family. And when everyone is family, there's always a birthday. And whether you were his grandchild or his barber's cousin's son, he was going to be there. Frank and Bev stayed put in Mount Greenwood until their late 70s, when their sons and cherished daughters-in-law, Mary and Allison, insisted that they move to the western suburbs, closer to the growing and supportive family. Frank embraced the short-distance move to the west, just as long as he could take all of his pieces. He was not about to throw anything out or leave things behind because you just never know when you're going to need exactly this. No one argued against his words because they all knew he was right. As Frank approached the century mark and heart disease was catching up with him, he didn't have to go through any big aha moment and alter his life. He didn't have to start living like he was dying. He learned that lesson ages ago in the Irish neighborhoods of Chicago in the 1920s. He lived diligently, purposefully, proudly, thoughtfully, gratefully. He'd be so appreciative that you are all here today. An opportunity for the family to get together. He wouldn't miss it. For Frank, this wouldn't be a Schlitz event. This would be a champagne of beers kind of day. It's always the small pieces that make the big picture. And because of that random bolt or nail that you needed, you knew that Frank was always there for you. Because he always showed up, you knew he truly cared. I encourage you to embody those qualities of Frank that you adored so much. Be there, show up, treat everyone like family. As you leave the service today, you can pass by the table and pause by the many coffee cans full of Frank's pieces. Take what you need to take. Frank saved these for all of you, to be there for you in your time of need. Whether you need one piece to remember him or you need a whole coffee can full so you can now become that guy that has any piece others may need, do it to honor Frank and for his legacy to live on. Live purposefully and in color. You are part of a puzzle in someone's life. You may never know where you fit, but someone's life may never be complete without a piece of you in it. In his last days, Frank prepared Bev for the significance of what was to come with the military honors that he had been a part of for so many other veterans. He told Bev, when you are handed that flag, hold it tight and be comforted. That is the piece of me that you get to keep. And a few more words and some military honors. And thank you for listening. But there's a secret about Frank. made him up. He doesn't exist.
I want to meet this guy.
I took pieces of him from so many
I wonder
people that
how
we
he
know
had his stuff.
and things that have happened, and I sat down for about an hour and a half and wrote notes. And that's how long a family meeting usually takes. So I'm meeting with someone to plan a service, about an hour, hour and a half, get some facts. I ask kind of the right questions to get the information I needed. So an hour and a half, I wrote some notes, and then I wrote Frank's story. And I did this, and I wanted to share this because we all felt a little something for Frank. I love Frank. Like, I cried reading this and writing. I mean, like, I've cried over this man who doesn't exist. And if I can do this for someone who's not real, imagine what I can do when it's your favorite person. And I'd be absolutely honored to serve your family in this capacity and capture the stories of the loves and lives of our community. And thank you.
Thank
If you really need a